Buenas noches. Vengo como emisario del equipo Stones and Serpents. Sean todos bienvenidos. Exactamente hace 6 meses, el día 31 de octubre del año 2025, hicimos nuestra primera publicación en torno a nuestro documental. Durante un live streaming en el canal Lady Babylon con el Dr. Ammon Hillman, estuvimos compartiendo con ustedes nuestro tráiler, exponiendo las primeras imágenes de nuestra expedición. Queremos agradecer a todos ustedes por el interés, por el apoyo y por la gran cantidad de preguntas que hemos recibido. Mientras en este preciso momento nuestro equipo se encuentra en etapa de rodaje, hemos también decidido crear este proyecto que ves ahora, que funciona como una expansión del universo Stones and Serpents. Con esta serie de volúmenes profundizamos en diversos tópicos de interés. Y esta noche, junto al Dr. Ammon, estamos presentando el volumen 4, donde estaremos intentando atravesar hacia el otro lado, hacia lo que no se ve. ¿Qué tecnologías usaron en la antigüedad para hacer visible el invisible? ¿Cómo se accionan las llaves que permiten abrir las puertas del Aoratos? ¿Quién está esperando al otro lado y cómo debo comportarme una vez que esté en presencia de ella? Bajar al Hades, manipular a los muertos, recibir la información y traerla de vuelta. Griegos, romanos, sectas cristianas, brujas y templarios, Saturno y Lucifer. Estas son las fascinaciones que atraviesan el tiempo. Bienvenidos a History is Inquiry.
Okay, Ammon, so we have been talking about this concept of the invisible that you told us it was the Aoratos as a Greek word. Can you elaborate a bit of what this will mean in ancient times?
Yeah, the ancient Greek is obsessed with this existence of an unseen world. There are powers and that there are authorities, that there are ways in physics. Things that move the universe are invisible. So the architecture of this invisible universe was important to the Presocratics, who took it and turned it into kind of a field of investigation. It became so prominent that even the Septuagint refers to God in the opening of Genesis, right? And says that this God created an earth that was Aoratos, formless, right? Not in the sense that it was didn't have any material, but that it was invisible. And the Greek uses aoratos for that. It's this invisible world that the Greek language is obsessed with exposing.
So you were mentioning the Presocratics. We have talked about it before, and can you explain to us what would be pre-Socratic ideas or Socratic ideas, or like what was a pre-Socratic? Can you explain to us what that will mean?
Sure. So you have a whole bunch of material philosophers who precede Plato, and they talk about things like what is the natural element that composes the universe as we know it? What are the basic functional units of the cosmos? And so there's a lot of physics in pre-Socratic, what we call pre-Socratic philosophy. And one of the branches of physics that the pre-Socratics are interested in is the capacity to visualize the invisible. What is that process all about? How do you come ultimately to learn about the things that we pre-Socratics are sitting around and saying, hey, there are these atomoi, these atoms that are down there on the very lowest level of existence. How do you get down to that invisible world? You have to get there through the logos, and that's what they're driving in the pre-Socratic intellectual world. They're driving the derivation of an understanding of all existence. Let me give you an example. What people are curious about is the harmony of the cosmos. What is the tension of the bow that brings us harmony? So you assume when you're sitting there and you start to read these different Greek authors, like different pre-Socratic authors, you assume that they're thinking about the natural world in the same way, and they're not. For example, they combine an understanding of music and the nature of being. So you can take those two ideas, kind of a philosophical or spiritual idea, and you can combine it with a very concrete idea that allows you to analyze. So it's like you can take something that is a concept and turn it into material. That's what this pre-Socratic mind is trying to do in Greek. Now, this doesn't characterize any other groups of different language groups that are in the area. This is particular to Greek. And it's why the music vocabulary that you and I use and the scientific vocabulary that you and I use is all based on the Greek. It's not based on anybody else. So.
Okay, Ammon. So going back to the first concept of the Aoratos, or the invisible, or this other reality, I don't know how to call it, to be honest. But so this is an idea that appears with this pre-Socratic thinking, or comes from before, or what do the text says to us?
You can't say that it definitely starts at this period, because you can see as old as the Mycenaean interest in Dionysus, with his digamma that he's got, and the fact that this is a real Mycenaean concept. Dionysus is all about the enthusiasmos, right? That state of elevated thinking, the state that you enter when you leave this plane, when you leave this reality, and enter the visionary state, where you go to the third heaven with Paul the Apostle, right? This is the tech that they're using, and the Greek vocabulary that describes that tech is all very specific and very straightforward. So I think it behooves us, it helps us to take a look at the Mycenaean enthusiastic mystery. Right? It's why we always go back to that oldest form that we have in the linear B. Right? That's our earliest evidence for the practice of this mystery. It's completely contemporary with Medea, and it is fits in perfectly with the literature that we get through the Kitharodes and the Apodes and the Homers and all of the Archilochoi, right? Archilochus. It's these people that are passing on this knowledge and this learning and this capacity in the Greek. And so that's, the world that you need to consider is a world where music and medicine and religion are the same thing.
Okay, so but just to put it in simple words, when we talk about this parallel or this unseen, which will be the Aoratos. So what I'm getting is like, well, it comes from, we cannot know, but we can infer where it's coming from. Then we get the Presocratic ideas about this place. It is a place where it is. Could you give us like a simple, I guess it's difficult to give a simple like definition of it, but what they were when they will say Aoratos, or this invisible, this place that you are going, and I guess it's the same place that they were referring to after, where the oracles were going to get some intel or some information or something like that, isn't it? We're talking about this same place, or I have this confusion. Can you elaborate on it?
Sure. We need the magic to be able to bridge the gap between the seen and the unseen. And that's where the pharmakeia comes in. The pharmakeia, the sorcery, the use of the drugs becomes the mechanism that we can finally jump over into the invisible, because the invisible is just as real as the visible. There is an understanding at the time, because of the Orphics, there is an understanding that music and the proportion undergird all of nature. They make up all of nature. These proportions are logical. They can be examined. They can be manipulated. For example, the string. You can manipulate the tension on the string. You can change the tone. And in doing so, you can create a language that has magical music associated with the very pronunciation of the words. So the pronunciation of the words that includes their musical tone has an effect on the invisible to make it visible. This is the activity, they would say, of our god Ion. Ion is the invisible, right? So when you have, as a magus, when you have Ionic life as a generated potential. So in other words, I can tell somebody, look, hey, let's meet after school, right? And I've got some drugs and whatnot, and I can take you to a place where you will enter into a new existence that is the invisible. I will make the invisible visible. I will give you Ionic life. Right? We would both take it. Right? Of course we would. Let's go. I want to see what this dimension is. And that's what these oracles all over the Greek-speaking world, that's what they're focusing on.
I'm sorry I interrupt you, but I cannot not make the question. Because, yeah, we have been hearing in the conversations about the Ionic life. And, well, I guess the phrase that I most remember, it will be like a place out of time. So, just in a nutshell, like a golden nugget, before we continue with the interview, what will be the difference between Ionic life and eternal life?
Right. That's a gorgeous question. Eternal life, life without end, right? Ionic life is the invisible life. Let me give you an example. So, eros, the desire that exists between two people that is sexual, that is an invisible reality. You cannot see it. You cannot track what goes between two people's eyes when they conceive of sexual desire. Yet there is an invisible world that is propelling that motion forward so that we have sexual union, because that's how we get life. So there is an invisible architecture that can be manipulated by the magus. And this is why, I can't tell you, this is why so many magi were executed in antiquity or exiled, because of their effective power over the invisible. Because remember, the invisible is running the kingdoms. So when an emperor consults with an astrologer, they're consulting with their highest educated people. And these are the people who are exposed to all the history. These are the people who are exposed to the writing. These are the people who know the magic song, the satanic Bacchic song. They know that. And it's what they practice, not as a religion, not as a cult, but as a philosophy of education and life. It's Saturnian religion. It's Saturnian over and over again. Satan is Saturn. It is Saturnian religion that was itself overcome by Christianity. So, yeah, fantastic.
Well, I'll keep going. I have a bunch of questions about that, but
yes,
let's just try to keep going with the schedule here. So, okay, so if we take this idea that we were talking about this other reality, is related, I guess, with this place the oracles were going, or like, what is the relation of the oracles and these Aoratos? It will be fair to think, or like, it will make sense to think that this place was the same place that the oracles were engaging with.
Yeah, remember, the oracles have sexual relations with the god, right? In all of the backstories, in all of these different Apollonian oracles, behind all of this curtain of rite is a relationship between a singer and the god. So that the very Bacchic rite itself is this. It's the relationship between the singer, that is Tione, the mother of Dionysus, and the god, the Zeus. The lightning is what is brought. And that's all the oracle is doing. But the Greek-speaking world in all different ethnicities described that as a sexual relationship. And it's part of the reason that the Christians said idolatry is a sexual act, right? It's a sexual act because it was, right? Imagine if you took your church to the level of the communion being the ejaculate of the host, and that was the actual transubstantiation that took place in that woman's body, or a eunuch. You can get a eunuch too. Sorry. Yeah.
So we're inferring that you will get a eunuch or a woman, but seems to be virgins at the same time. So could you elaborate in the idea of like there is a sexual relationship with the god, but she seems to be a virgin. So what are we talking about here?
Yeah, she has to come to the point of that orgiastic climax. She has to find. There's a reason that the word orgy is for us, the kind of idea of a sex party. But originally, it is the performance of the religious act. So this goes way, way back. This is deeply rooted. You cannot have these Bacchic satanic mysteries without the sex act. There must be an orgiastic orgasmon. There has to be an orgasm. There has to be the creation of seed. And not just from a man, but they considered it seed from a woman as well. That ejaculate that a woman has is a seed in the very same way that a male's ejaculate is a seed. So they are looking at the performance of that sexual magic as the bridge for the invisible. We bring it out. I told you Eros can't be seen, but you can see the effects of Eros. You can see the effects of that attraction, for example, that two people will get for each other, or a repulsion that one will get when the other one has an attraction. Those forces are what are being the invisible powers that the Magus, through the Logos, through the song, through the expression, the verbal expression, is able to control. I can control you with aphrodisiacs. If there's one thing I can tell you from antiquity, of all the Greek that I've read, the most popular topic is drugging somebody into sex. So this is a part of the rite. And for the person to reach the point where they emit seed is the platform that launches us into the invisible. For some reason, I don't know why, Bruno, but for some reason, they had to have the mind in orgasm under the influence of these death inducers in order to get you to the world of the invisible, in order to that spiritual realm. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. And actually is a question I've been asking you for the past 6 months in different ways. So I'll ask you again. Like how we, how we can, do you have, because yeah, you will think like, of course, and a feeling of an orgasm at the same time, death inducer, because I'm thinking about a situation that's going on at the same time. So it feels like completely overwhelming to like have all of these elements happening to yourself in, I don't know, like half an hour. But what I mean is like, do we have like some kind of example or with the text that we can talk about this, or like orgasm drugged with the dead inducer on you and all of this at the same time. Do you have some accounts about this situation that we can just create an imaginary, like image in, just to try to understand like why this person will be feeling, I guess.
Yeah, you can reconstruct it, but you have to start with the most non-theoretical, the most practical, the most, substantive, I guess you'd say. And that's the drugs. Once you look at different drugs that are being used in rites, then you start looking for words that will betray the activities that the cult participant is performing in. So we have all of these wonderful little descriptions. For example, there is the Black Sphinx who takes the scroll and inserts it in her vagina. On the scroll, in the very same text, on the scroll is written the song in an ink that is medicated. She is placed during this whole rite with a male child. She is called the pederast. Right? Her reaching her climax is the production of her song. There is some kind of music mechanics that when a person is in the height of their ecstasy, their natural physical sexual ecstasy, there's a way to bring song. It's what the oracles are doing. It is a sex act that can and must use an intermediary. The vehicle or the instrument is that priestess. It's her that's being tuned to the universe. So again, you don't think of sex, we don't, in moderns, I don't know, maybe somebody does, but you don't think of the sex act as a musical performance, despite the fact that we associate very specific vocalizations with the act of having intercourse. So the orgiastic release, that little death, is absolutely programmed into the mystery. Remember, all of this has to do with what? An induction of death followed by a resurrection. We're going to put you through a process of dying and being born again. So, the mystery is not an operation that explains all of ancient religion. No, it's one very specific rite meant to pierce that veil between the visible world and the invisible world. Those two realities can be brought together, and the person that does that is the initiate. So the power of that woman, let me say this. There was a great priest, Plutarch, in antiquity, and Plutarch had oracle friends, and one of his oracle friends he shared letters with, and he talked to her about the sacred rite that is female sexuality, not masculine. The sacred rite that is female sexuality. And he describes so elegantly how this is a rite natural to every woman, and that it can be brought out and mastered and put into a cult in order to lead. And that cult would be visionary. That cult could create lines of priestesses whose bodies could perform the same mystery. Remember, it's their seed that is life. Even when Jesus refers to his going back to that origin, that life, that bread of life that gives us the renewal, right? These are references to mystery cults that are using human body fluids and rites that are sexual, drug-induced rites to bring you to a place that you cannot go otherwise. The priestess is there to harness her special voice in the cosmos.
Okay, thank you, Ammon. And well, I guess, yeah, and from the perspective of the the person that will go and be initiated. So just like quick question, who will be initiated? I mean, everybody can go and be initiated if he wants. I mean, who is the initiated? When we talk about the initiated, who is the initiated?
Yeah, there's usually the short answer to that is there's usually some kind of performance they have to do, some kind of workup to the actual initiation. They have to go through a period of fasting. There's also sometimes it's shaving the head. Sometimes it's a period of meditation on a specific formula. So, in other words, I bring, like we see in the PGM, I bring my daughter to be initiated. She and I gather all the ingredients they will need for the drug recipe. We bring it with us. They bury the thing for a week, let it develop in the ground while she, my daughter, is going through an incantation, a song, a group of visions that she will see once she has taken the communion. So it's like a preparation that is educational, musical, and drug induced. And the whole object is to create that vision, to be able to see the unseen, so that when you pull a person out, they can have changed the way that they think about the world.
Okay, and when we talk about this specific initiation rite, I guess you cannot time frame it because probably it's a very broad amount of time. But when we talk about this specific that you are talking about, we're talking about Greece, like classical Greece, this kind of times, or this kind of initiation you are talking, or you are talking about like
all over the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. And these are rites that are either they take place at any time or they take place during festivals. There can be specific times.
I'm sorry. I guess I have to reframe my question. So, well, we have been talking about initiation rites before, so we know it comes from, as we can know with the text, it comes from Bronze Age and probably before, but we have the text in Greek from Bronze Age and after, isn't it? And we keep having these initiation rites, and let's go a bit forward and let's frame it in classical Greece. So these initiation rites continue to happen, and how will be this initiation in the 5th century BC?
Yeah. By the 5th century, the Eleusinian mysteries have really taken over. And so they've become the vehicle for diffusion of the rite. Whereas it was oracular, throughout the history of the Greek-speaking world all over the Mediterranean, you can see these rites erupting, influencing Roman rites. You can see Romans completely adopting these very same mysteries. It becomes a problem with the Bacchanalia, as you and I, have talked about. So remember that these rites are explosive, and it's all part of their nature. By 5th century Athens, their playwrights are characterizing their mystery rites as these explosive groups that can come out of nowhere. The Dionysian ecstasy is a part of nature, so it can be inflamed at any time. All you need is the right menad. That's all you need. It's a feminine priesthood that says, and I'm telling you, Bruno, it explicitly states that that female capacity for that orgiastic height, that orgasm, is what distinguishes women as superiors to their inferior male counterparts. So it's a completely different, you think, oh, is this from Greece? No, no, no. This is a philosophy and a religion and a medicine that came to the world from the Black Sea and from these Scythians that you and I have talked about. Yet you still see it. When the Romans are having a crazy problem with the women in the aristocracy recreating Bacchic rites, that all of a sudden they've got to prosecute them and execute them. And by the way that they found these women was through their drugs. But this is something that explodes. It's never masculine. So it's I think it's one of the biggest mysteries of the mystery. Why it is that a female physiology is required to elevate the mortals.
And well, actually, that's the question that I was going to ask you now, like how it keeps going, how it develops towards Roman times. I guess it continued to exist. Well, I understand that it does because of what you were just saying, but how this initiation rites will continue. We just talked about the 5th century, like the most known century of ancient Greece, I guess, but that will give an heritage, I guess, in these ideas of initiation to Roman times, or it doesn't.
You've got to remember that the initiatory mystery cults have already established themselves in Italy, in Sicily. You can talk about these different priesthoods that are direct mystery cult borrowings. So this is why you have these, some people would criticize it and say it's foreign or it's Eastern. Yet it is a deeper part of the Italian or the Latin soil than you and I are willing to admit. They admitted it. Let me give you an example. Circe, right? Her Italian influence had to do with, she was exiled because one of the local kings she killed, and right, had to end up with all of her women because she's primarily walking around and developing civilization with women. She is this Italian link that is the pharmaceutical link, the religious mystery link that ultimately produces the ancestors of the Romans. They know there's a connection between Circe, this Mycenaean queen, by the way, who rapes Odysseus. Right? And people read this. This is the most confused book of Homer anywhere. This is from the Odyssey, when Odysseus gets captured by Circe. She not only drugs him, and he's got an antidote, but she demands immediately that he have intercourse with her, and nobody ever questions. Why is this that it's having? What is this domination thing with now she's got to have sex with him? Yes, because that is a part of the mechanics. He is one of those eunuch captives being fed into a Mycenaean religion that is this fiery combination of medicine and music and all of these power players. Like, people don't realize, but the Greek world looked at Odysseus as a magus. People don't realize that. But if you read ancient Greek criticism of Homer, or just scholiasts commenting on Homer, you're going to find that people understood the link already. They knew it was there in their own literature. They knew it was there. So the Romans are not detached from the mystery at all. And it shows it in their sanctuaries and in their practices. Yeah.
So in Roman society, you will be engaging with Homer at some point.
In Roman society, you will be influenced thoroughly by Homer to such a degree that your greatest authors, your most popular authors, will copy Homer. Think about it for a minute. We all think of Virgil. Virgil is famous, and probably the most famous for his day, and he was immensely popular in his own lifetime. He was considered the Roman poet. And where did he get there? How did he get there? He's writing, Homeric stuff. He basically just kind of says, well, I'll just do what Homer did again. Now, he didn't just do it like he's going to steal it. He studied Homer, and he understood the music of Homer that is then bleeding into the Latin, that he's sucking into the Latin, a powerful, powerful influence. So, and they are very well aware that the main characters that are their heroes in these epics are the users and abusers of the magic that is creating this world that sex trafficking, drug trafficking can thrive upon. Yeah, you need to traffic the drugs if you're going to have rites of Christing, right? You can't just put any sort of normal cream into your eyes. You've got to put the stuff that makes the invisible visible. That's what you need. So, this is the world they're living in.
Yeah, well, I understand the connection you do there with the, because I guess he has to do a bit with, if you are initiated, you will understand, I guess, what you are talking about. Like, it was part of, well, let's say in that case, like Virgil, he was, what I know about him is like I read the Aeneid. I don't know how to say it in
the Aeneid, yes.
Okay, Aeneid in Spanish. So it's a history of, I guess, like after the Troy War, or like it's like some epic for the Romans to have a epic history of their own upbringing or history, I guess. But when we are saying that he understood the way of doing it, we're implying that he is at the same time an initiated.
We are implying that he's educated in Greek.
So not the same. It's not, which is not the same.
Yeah, whether or not, right, which is not the same. Whether or not he's an actual initiate, that's neither here nor there, but a lot of them are, right? It's not something you wouldn't admit to, right? It's not something you keep private. So
okay, so in the context, you will want to be initiated. It will not be something that it will be like in closed doors, I guess. I mean,
right. No, it's something that it's a process, right? And it's so deep. I told you it's so deep with the magic and the drugs that even the Aeneid, which speaks about Dido, the great Carthaginian queen, Dido and the beauty that is there with her relationship with the Neos, right? And you read that book and you thought, wow, that's a gorgeous scene, and it's tragic because Dido kills herself, right? And you don't realize, if you read the commentators who were living at the time, who were writing, Roman commentators, they will tell you, they will tell you, Dido is fictional. Virgil grafted Medea into his Roman epic and made her Dido. People knew that at the time. They had no. Why? Because there's all sorts of linguistic hints to show you the connection. He's doing that on purpose. When Julius Caesar hangs that portrait of Medea in the Temple of Venus, you've got to realize, you think that's a mortal with an immortal, and you're not supposed to do that. It's not. It's an immortal that you know as Medea, but they knew as Venus Genetrix, our founding creator mother.
So, what is necromancy, Ammon?
Necromancy is bringing the music of the daimon that allows you to lead the necroi. Those are the dead. And so in the invisible world that you can't see are the dead. And the dead are controllable. You can manipulate the dead. So I can manipulate, as a magus, like Odysseus, I can manipulate the dead around myself or around you. I can reach out and touch you with the dead. It's the power that is attributed to the underworld, or what they call the hypochthonian divinity. That you call it like the king of hell, something like that. It's that type of power, and it's still classified as Saturnian. So it's mainstream satanic manipulation. It's like your Bacchic chorus, you want them to be able to bring back the dead, right? If you're not seeing the dead, you're not, imagine this, you're not going on your initiation. You're not going to the beyond if you're not interacting with those invisible dead spirits, right? So it's really a process that the mystery relies upon.
And Ammon, just because of this concept that you mentioned more than once in the conversation, when you say Saturnian, I know it's probably a big topic, but what do you mean when you say Saturnian?
Yeah, the powers of the Aeaean queen are Saturnian. So Saturn is the Cronian on the Greek side, planted in the soil of the sickles of the native tribes in Sicily and Italy. It's that when you plant the mystery in that soil, that's the form that you get. So it really is. I mean, I've strayed from your question, but it really is the potential in nature. One thing I don't think that I'm communicating that they were interested in and thought about and propagated within their religious practice is this manipulation of what you and I would just call the laws of nature. That is what they are doing in order to create a a world that is controlled or written, let's say, written by an author, you have to be able to bend the rules of nature. It's unnatural in its essence. The only way to do this are with the seeds of fire. And it's not just the religious cults that are working on the seeds of fire, so are the philosophers. Because if you can understand the basic elements of the universe, you can control the universe. Because the universe is just a cosmos, it's an order. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. Okay. So, as before, to connect it with the whole conversation, I was asking you about necromancy, and before we were talking about the other side, or this different reality. What is the connection with it? I mean, when we talk about necromancy and be able to connect with this, with the death of the dead, we're, we are connecting with this same realm, or I don't know how to call it, I mean, I'm trying to see if in text the connection of this other side, this Aoratos, will have this connection with the practice of necromancy. That would be
perfect question, Bruno. Perfect question, because you mentioned Virgil. Virgil does this, right? He uses the Sibyl, right? We've got an entire book. Why does he do this? To connect us with the dead? Because Homer does this. Homer does the very same thing. The scholars of classical philology like to call it the Nequia. So it's specifically the book of the Odyssey that has to do with Odysseus's transgression of the invisible, his ability to make visual or visible. How do they describe it? Exposed to the rays of Helios. Right. Remember when Jesus is transformed? Right. What does it say he's transformed when he's on the mountain? It says this, transformed into Helios. That is the power of the visible manifestation. The visible manifestation. And it's only possible through the rays of Helios. The Mithraics understood this. It's kind of what they balanced their whole fucking cult on. And that's what's going on, is we're making visible that invisible. So, yeah, gorgeous.
So the idea of necromancy is a different discipline. There's a form of doing necromancy which is different from what they were doing before, but they are engaging with this same Aoratos.
Yes, yes. Odysseus is doing it through an exercise taught to him by Circe. Aeneas is doing it through an actual Sibyl, a priestess herself, who takes him across the void, right? Odysseus goes there himself by the power that Circe showed him. They both end up in the same place. It's a place of making that dead visible. And why would you want to do this in both cases? Why are these people doing this? You seriously, you got to talk to your dead grandmother? Why do you need to talk to your dead grandmother? Because it's been shown your dead grandmother knows everything. Wait. So your dead ancestors are a source of limitless knowledge? Yes. Your dead ancestors then become the tools that you can use to manipulate your visible reality around you. There's a reason that people really don't understand that Jesus is chasing around demons, right? He's specifically binding these forces, these invisible forces, because he's been Christed. And he knows the
So he can see him. He can see them,
Exactly.
and he can talk, have information from them.
Correct.
And the oracle was doing the same.
Correct. It's just physics.
So there is a place that we are engaging with through time, with different names
Yes.
and disciplines.
Right. And there are a lot of people through time who have spent their lives attempting to explain and explore and illustrate that world. The Greek magical papyri is just full of these descriptions of the invisible and how the people interact with it. The physics is so established that I, as a priest, can tell you who's a new person who's about to be initiated, right? I can give you the vision that you will encounter. I can tell you who you will see and what they will say. I can tell you how to interact with them. I can give you the magic language to manipulate them. There's this funny phenomenon that you see in the PGM that once you've broken through to that invisible realm, the powers that be there are immediately hostile. They have to be controlled. And the way to control them is with this music/language. You can switch off these gods. It's described as they will see you, become immediately hostile, and they can kill you. So what you have to do is switch the polarity so that they recognize you as not a foreign object, but as one of them. It's the weirdest physics. And I don't know how psychologically the person is dealing with this, because you fed this like in the case of the Mithraic liturgy, you fed this child these images that she will take with her on this journey. So how is that affecting her as she lays there in what appears to you and me as a coma? What is it that's going on here with her that, is she then going to successfully employ those images that have been trained into her in order to navigate this space? Remember, it's not, if you're a monist, it's not just a pagan thing. Paul the Apostle is a traveler into the Aoratos, into the invisible, and he describes it in detail, right? As if he is outside of his own body, as if he is traveling dimensionally. So this is not something that just pagans are doing.
And I'm on, well, a bit connected with what you were saying. So they were engaging with something that was not random, because if you can have like a protocol, I guess they had. So there is in the text, in the evidence, that it's like some kind of entities or archons, I don't know how to name them, or the concept of it. There is something that we can relate as entity, which is in the other side or something. Do you have something like that in text?
Yeah, they're all over the place. Oh my God, there's all like, okay, let's just do pole lords. What is a pole lord? Well, first of all, what is a pole? That's a Greek word, right? If you think of a globe, you can think of the two poles. Okay, that's pretty easy for us to understand, but it's talking about the invisible cosmos, the invisible architecture. So there are quote unquote pole lords that will control the transit of your consciousness. These pole lords have to be manipulated. Just like all of these, oh God, there are divinities that will appear once you have, for example, opened a gate, right? You're like, what? Once you have constructed a portal, this entity will approach you. And this is what you're telling the girl who's going to go through this rite. And what you do is you repeat this expression, and then that entity will recognize you. And sometimes these entities are things like Tuche, the virgins. Wait, what? There are virgins coming. Who is writing this? The funny thing is you can take 1,000 people, you can train them in the same way, and they will have the same experience. People think that hallucinatory experience is individual. It's not just individual, it's group. You can create an architecture and then operate within that architecture in the rite. So in other words, you can send somebody in on a mission. And that mission can be to acquire data from the future in order to bring it back and then manipulate the timeline. It's the weirdest. It's like, dude, are these people crazy? Is there something? How can you get to the point that your visions are that universal, that you can have 1,000 people seeing the same, what you and I would call hallucination?
And this information that this person will bring, this person will have to be engaging with an entity or with what?
What's the seed of fire and why are they so interested in it? I mean, it literally is like fuel. So when you see depictions of Eros, the arrows are flaming. They contain the flux. It's like a spinter. It's like a spark that can ignite the invisible ether. And that's how you bring the lightning. You make all of this stuff visible with the lightning. When you take the sacred and make it profane, you create an imbalance in between the invisible and the invisible that creates backlash that brings lightning, and that's destruction. And so this physics is what they're plugging into these rites. Where let me just say this. Imagine a rite where you have 5,000 people. These people have come to you and they have been fasting. They have been practicing their songs. They've been packing these images into their heads. And they are at a point where they can now be initiated. You are going to give them all the same vision. And what is it particularly, historically, outside of Athens? It's the image of the queen of the damned, the queen of hell herself, who is resurrected. And it is the single image that every initiate is allowed to divulge to people who are not initiated. What did you see at the great rites? What did you see? I saw her. You're allowed to talk about her. I saw her, right? And the art parallels this vision, this mystic vision. So it's almost as if the artists are pulling out the scientific details that the priesthood is revealing. They're performing, the priesthood is performing the rite. They're inducing the, what you and I call a hallucination, what they would say is the making visible of the invisible. And they would induce this mass hallucination that has an effect. The image itself of her has an effect to change the person for the positive. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So well, I will just to ask the question, because I understand that when I ask you about entities, well, this was the answer. But so there is, if we go further in time, like going after this idea of this that this rite, and I get the vibe that it was very well performed, because he was having the same outcome, or we have a protocol to do it and all of that. But I guess this continues in time, and we have this, all of these ideas, like it probably is modern ideas, like these entities you encounter in the other side, and you have, you know, is like a kind of fascination to know about who are these guys, man? Who are these? Is the archons? Is the freaking, you know what I mean?
That's a perfect word you just said, fascination, from the Latin fascinum, which is that daimon of the phallus, the erect phallus that you point in somebody's face, that priapeic image, again from nature, right? This is a natural thing. You don't have to be certain race or ethnicity.
Please elaborate.
Yeah, right. That's the power that you're calling on. That priapeic magic, right? There's a reason that the rite is sexual. There's a reason that it has to do with drugs. There's a reason that the magic is centered in this erection. And it's not what you think. Is that it's not? Remember, this is designed by women, not men. And in the temple is always this phallus. That phallus becomes that potent wand that's part of the Magus's rite. Yeah, where were we going? There was something beautiful I just missed there.
I'm sorry. I also was going like, just going with the entities, you know, because everybody's like fascination. I just said fascination, and yeah, we went into some other place, but you have to understand, I mean, just a small thing, like the whole thing about entities is like what you know, we are all about fascinated about it, like, is this other place, and there's entities, archons, like, because it's different if you say you go to the sea and you can feel something in the ocean, and you will feel that you have some kind of thing, you know. But it's different if you think you're going to talk with a woman or the dude that's going to appear. So obviously, you know, you know what I mean? Sounds like very stupid when I say it. But you know what I mean?
Right. A good question that you're bringing up is why are these images so frightening? Right. Well, remember, these are the people who wear the aegis, and the aegis is the head of that decapitated virgin that is supposed to turn you to stone. Right. Think of those images. Those are all the images that we use when we enter the invisible. Right. Those are the logoi. Those are the reasoned proportions of the universe. And if I understood music better, that would make sense to me musically, but I don't understand it. And so this is the kind of, this is the kind of reasoning. Now, those invisible entities, yes, excuse me, you should be able, you should be able to manipulate those, right? That's what they do. That's what the whole rites are for. If you didn't, you wouldn't need to be trained. So the question is, there's a lot of stuff in there about the sexual magic. There's a reason the phallus is there in the middle of the temple. There's a reason that people might say sexual energy that John Chrysostomus calls satanic energy or Saturnian energy. That can be used. So you should be able, by the powers of manipulation, right? You should be able to stand in front of her and to induce the song in her. A true magus is dangerous because he can come into the presence of her and she can spontaneously reach the height of the orgiastic rite. It's a danger, right? What is it? It's divine power. It's what the sons of God must keep from the daughters of men, or you end up getting giants. So it's gorgeous magic. It's very nice magic, and it boggles my mind, Bruno. When people look at it, they think all of this stuff is not interrelated, but it is. Their spirituality, their medicine, their physicality, their music. Imagine, one more time, I'm going to say, there is a type of music that is sexual intercourse. You didn't realize that when you're having intercourse, that it is a musical act. So that's, it's a different way of thinking about the world. And it makes sense that there are people like Circe who develop things, develop drugs, and use them on people in order to gain a certain vision of the world.
So when we go further and we go to times of Christianity, not Christianity even, before, when the Christian sects are operating, and we want to keep following the Aoratos. In times of Christian ideas, this continue to happen. What is the relationship with the Christian sect or sects with these Aoratos? Are they engaging with it? Is part of their ideas, religion?
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. And I can only tell you what I've seen that has the same language of the ancient mystery. And that's a couple of examples. One is during Vlad the Impaler's rule, there is a prince who is following him and writing Orphic poetry. It's one example that uses ritual and ritual terminology through the Latin. So was Marulus, this guy's name is Marulus, was he aware of the rite? He wrote about it. So I think it's only, given that he at least had knowledge of what they did in antiquity, if it didn't apply to what he was actually practicing. But the Crusaders with the Templars, they were doing the same thing. The accusations against them were all the same thing. And the purple stains in their underpants, all of that, and the taint, and the licking of the taints, and the licking of the penis head, all of that, passing the purple between the Templars, raising up the head of Baphomet, which Mattia is the Etruscan title for Medea, right? So that baptism of the Messiah, of the Mede Wanasa, is in the very name of the fucking head that they were carrying around that they said they dug out of the Temple of Jerusalem. So, are they doing things that are mimicking the rites? Yeah, they are. The other one is witches. You can read in the witch trials, and you can see the pagan mystery elements in the witch trials. And strangely enough, the sexual element remains strong. In addition to the drugs, the sex and drug connection is strong, so that you see these quote unquote witches who are performing these quote unquote satanic acts that are enabling them to do things like go to the witch's banquet. And if you've never been to the witch's banquet, it's the same place that Arthur was taken when he was injured in battle, some say killed, and then resurrected by the local Morgan, the local witch that was the adjunct of Satan himself. So the rite is directly reflected in the language once again. So those are three examples. Yeah,
amazing examples, and so to like just to give a bit of context, or not a context, but just a question to elaborate, or not to elaborate also, like just to make this idea together. Can you just give us an idea of this transition from these ideas that we were talking about before and this new world that we're talking about now? Like, there is something that happened in between, I guess. Like, it was this monotheistic idea that changed everything. So I'm not asking you to give us a whole lecture about the transition, but when we talk about the Aoratos of these ideas, the ideas of the connection with initiation rites, everything that we are talking, once the world kind of, or not the world, let's say the ideas were prohibited, kind of thing, like when the empire becomes Christian, and because I guess that what we are talking about now is after when the Roman Empire becomes Christian, I guess, like all of these examples you just gave us. So can you just elaborate to have an idea of this transition, how it happened, how this whole ideas of initiation, this is your society, and then you have this, okay, not anymore, now we have just one God. What happened with all of these ideas of initiation and connection with the Aoratos to keep going?
Yeah. You can't have the connection with the invisible if you can't go through Aphrodite. The saying that the Greek-speaking world had was Dionysus always leads to Aphrodite. So that made the Wanasa, that Bronze Age queen overseer, is present like a pattern in nature. She will always become re-inflamed and enter into the invisible. You will always have Bacchic uprisings. Monism, particularly Christianity, stifled that on the drug front, on the ritual front, even on the music front. We can see in John Goldenmouth, Chrysostomus, right? We can see the stifling of that particular type of music that induces the vision. So you and I today are living in a world where all the basic elements of enabling you to use your visionary natural abilities, right? Because they're initiating everybody. Right? It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter where you're from, doesn't matter they don't have an IQ test when you walk in the door, right? They don't have any sort of, test to see how many thetans you got or bullshit like that, right? No, it's something sewn into the nature of our own existence that this eidolon, this image can be reignited, can reassert itself. And
at some point, this changed. To what?
Yeah. What do you get? You get a loss of the protection of the virgin. You get a loss of democracy right away. When you see, like Libanius talks about, roving bands of Christian monks who will enter into a state and will see the people in the estate burning incense, in front of images of divinities, right? And will then declare that the estate belongs to the church rightfully and no longer to the people who've lived there for centuries. So it's a process. You say, how did it happen? It's a process of appropriation and genocide. You have to genocide the culture that's there. And that pagan culture recognizes nature. So you've got to have apostles who are walking around saying, you must ignore nature. It's not important what you can reason or what you can see. It's important what you believe. Faith is a monist product. You don't have faith as a follower of Dionysus, as a Maenad, right? Doing your Maenad thing with all your Maenad women, following your rites, trying to stay within the law. You are not bound by anything but the cult divinity. And is that what enabled them to go the extra mile? Because you and I don't go to communion and have sex. We don't go to communion. It's funny, the early Christians did, and nobody portrays this. Nobody portrays early Christian rites.
Yeah,
which involved.
I'm sorry, but can we just go a bit on it? Like these early Christian ideas, because I guess they was not like just from like 1 year to another, it became monism in time. So first Christian ideas or whatever, probably they were doing something very similar, like the mysteries and doing it in their own I don't know, as they were doing it, I guess. You know what I mean?
We take communion, we turn the lights off, we take our clothes off, and we enter into the orgiastic rite. Now, if I happen to have sex with a sister or a cousin, that's all covered. It's sanctified within the rite, the Christian rite itself. This is what the Romans were arresting people for, because incest to them was off the table. That was definitely illegal. They weren't going to justify it. They didn't care what you were worshiping. But if you're going to enter an orgy with your children, you're not doing it right. It's a violation, right?
Mm-hmm. So it was not just one idea of Christians.
No.
It was a bunch of, okay.
Yeah, and we know that. We know that, Bruno, because we have sources that tell us about all the different sects of Christianity ad nauseum. And you'd be surprised at what high percentage of these cults or sects, cults, that they're still retaining an element of the sexual practices. It's so widespread that you have early Christian authors saying, get all of the botani, all of the plants, take them out of the communion. So, anywho, we've talked about that a little bit, but remember, you were asking about these entities, these invisible entities. There's an entire physics to determining what those entities are. I mean, you talk about humans and aliens, and now you talk about this type of alien, this lizard person, right? That is infantile in comparison to the science of the invisible world with all of its entities, right? And people think, oh, you're talking Harry Potter and, oh, God, these big angels with wings. No, you're talking about the forces around you right now sitting there that can influence and will influence you. This is why a magus can put an image in your brain. Why from a distance? You can be sitting, this is the idea. And if you want to get into the Mormolucaean, that's really where the entity from which this power comes.
Ammon, please. The other day I was trying to find the word because I was translating a conversation we had, and you talked about her, and it's impossible to find the word. So I just put ancient Greek or whatever. I don't remember, but yeah, it's a her, isn't it?
Yes. And remember, they're interacting with the language that is magical, that is based in Greek. But the pronunciation of it, the creation of its song, causes an effect on the invisible forces around you. So that's why Jesus can walk around and say, in the name of so-and-so, I command this and that. He's manipulating the same forces. But one of these forces that Mormolucaean is combined with the tradition of entering into that dream zone of the pubescent child. So imagine that there is an entity in the world whose satanic energy, whose Saturnian energy radiates from the pubertal development itself. That energy can be manipulated and expressed so that you suddenly are surrounded by those who would vampirically feed off of that very same energy. Right? You can go to bed tonight, lay down in bed, and I can send that Mormolucaean, that devouring, child devouring source. Right? Because that's what happens in that development of that Attis, right, to the Adonis. There is a loss. And that Mormolucaean is the physical, invisible, cosmic force that I, as a magus, can manipulate. Medea's killing from a distance was only a killing from a distance because it involved the manipulation of those forces, right? Otherwise, it's impossible. The person's way over there in a different country, right? How can I do this? It's a physics that you don't need to calculate distance for. And I'm telling you, when you are able to induce a consistent vision, when you are able to create a situation where an eidolon, a statue, can speak to a crowd, a diverse crowd, and that crowd can record the same spoken vocalizations. When you're able to do that, you're working with, you're manipulating something there on a grand level. And it wasn't just the Greek mysteries that were able to do this. The Egyptian mystery claimed the same power, and especially the power of what they called motivation. Right? How do you make that? You walk into a creepy, dark temple, right? You're standing there, and here's the statue of the lion-headed goddess. You and I look at that as tourists. We don't get it. But if you were Christed and interacting with the invisible in spirit form, that image takes on a power that, yeah, okay, it could change a life. It could change the way you look at the world. So I think it's frightening, and it's depicted that way for a reason. All of these Medusae, all of these these monster faces, that Haka, that those gorgeous, gorgeous Maori bring to the world, that Haka is the same thing. It's that demon, invisible force. If I could send a Haka to someone who's sleeping, rah, and get them right and pull them out of, you've been there, you've been in that dream, and you've been pulled out by these are forces that you can actively manipulate so that you can cause, this is the cool one, you can cause people to say things, right? Without prompting them. You can introduce logoi, you can introduce sentiments into their thumos. You can introduce an idea without saying it, without repeating it, I can just do it from a distance. Why would I even want to do that kind of thing? I suppose just to see what the connections are in the universe. But I'm going to practice it by taking my cousin who really is in love with that girl, and I'm going to implant in her mind love for him back. Right? You think, well, this is just for romantic stories. No, the entire story, the narrative of Medea, right, is that she was one of those abducted priestesses who had to be there for the stupid Greek kid to be able to finish his fucking quest. She had to basically do it for him, right? Don't think that they weren't using the image of that Cora, that priestess who is invisible, that muse is invisible around you. You see, it's just a part of nature.
So I'm well, I have our last block. This was amazing. Last one, which is the most important one, I guess. So, well, just to keep going in time before our last questions, I think it's interesting to go as far as we go to the Byzantine, because I've been talking. You have told me, like, sometimes we don't talk about the Byzantine text. We left them behind. It's too modern or whatever. So as we are talking about the Aoratos and this idea of this place, or, well, this other reality. So what, in a nutshell, what can we say about the Byzantine, the Byzantines? Were they talking about this after all of those years before classical Greece, all of this time? Because when we say Byzantine, we're talking about 1,000, from 1,000 Anno Domini and forward, I guess.
No, you could go back a little bit earlier. 500 or 600 is when you begin to see that Byzantine Greek kind of move in. And that's how classical philologists are classifying the literature, right? It's not Byzantine because it's a particular century. It's Byzantine because it's Byzantine Greek, and it's got a different flavor to it. And the Christianity has come to a point where it is silencing the spread of that classical knowledge. But there are some people, mostly grammarians, who have to stay close to that ancient Greek so that they can build a new world based upon its tech. They're really preserving this tech of seeing the invisible, which is being actively stifled. So these Byzantine Greek writing authors who are exposing themselves to the ancient Greek that has to do with this mystery, they're passing on the knowledge. They're perpetuating it. Michael Sellis is a good example. He's writing about demonology. He's writing about the incubus. He's writing about all of those invisible powers. He manages to keep spreading it in a way that makes it look like he's studying it. He's taking it apart, right? Instead of promoting it. And in that way, he gets away with revealing forbidden knowledge. You know, there's a fight in the 5th and 6th centuries. There's a fight between Christian educational sources and pagans. And Christians do not want certain things taught. Any of that pagan stuff, they don't want that taught anymore in schools. They don't want Homer to be the basis for that. And they're causing the grammarians to lose footing. So at the time, in the 5th and 6th centuries, there's what authors appear who seem to be Christian so that they can get past the censors. And then they write about pagan things kind of buried underneath the Christian facade. Nonus is one of these. What do they call them? They call them crypto-pagans. So they're really pagans passing on the knowledge through the written word. But in order to get that knowledge, they kind of have to cover it over with a Christian facade. It's a secretive way of passing on that mystery. And if you just take Nonus, for example, and look through, he writes the longest Greek epic in this crazy Homeric Greek that's over 1,000 years old by this time, 1,500, something like that. Long time. Dude he's way beyond Homer, but he's able to go back to it. He's able to reproduce the incantatory. So he's incorporating this Orphic terminology. He's creating new words. Every third word is a new word that he has created. The capacity here is amazing. And it's an epic. He wrote an epic about Dionysus. So you can take individual episodes of this epic and you can just lift them out of text and analyze them for the cult terminology that is being used, and it lines up perfectly with the Orphic initiatory mystery, the very base and root of Mitra, the worship of Mitra, who is the predecessor of Mithras. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we talk about Mitra, and we're talking about what time, just to time frame it for my next question. We're talking about Roman times, Anno Domini.
No, all the way back to late Bronze Age. I would say.
No, but let's say the Mithraic liturgy.
From the time of Medea to the time that Julius Caesar hung her portrait in the Temple of Venus. That whole time, the cult is operating.
Okay. Yeah. Because the other day I was talking about the Mithraic liturgy, and there was this discussion about this is from Roman times, this is from,
Yeah. Right. People think, because it was so heavily associated with the Roman aristocracy, and particularly the military, it was so embedded in their practices that, of course, it got a reputation for being Roman, but it's a Roman adoption. It's a Roman adoption, and it is sitting snugly. Mithraism sits very snugly in the echidnaic rites because you are following those granddaughters of the sun. The initiation all has to do with Helios. It's all over the magic. It's all over the rites. It's all over the literature. It's in the music. It's everywhere. So for people to say you can't put things together and you can't really see what's going on in the mysteries, that's because you haven't read enough primary sources.
As we were talking about entities or whatever, so obviously comes this idea of Lucifer or Satan, you know. Also, because of everything we were talking about, and I've been seeing it everywhere now in internet or whatever. Now, I'm sure you have seen it also. Like nowadays, like Saturnian, Satan, it's Kronos, is the the hexagon in Saturn, the cube in the head of the rabbi or whatever. A lot of freaking stuff happening. So as we are talking about entities, so the question I did it. My phone just died, so I just remember. It's like well, when we talk about Lucifer, who is somebody? Is an energy? Is a concept? What is who is Lucifer?
Lucifer is the best looking. He's going to bring you to orgasm. And when you go there, your eyes will be opened. This is the way. It's part of nature. And it is there for your benefit because the archon that rules your world is a child trafficking, child raping reflection of your reality. That balance between the mirror, between the image that you're looking at and your actual skin, is what is your present. So we as a collective group are experiencing that invisible magic around us to the extent that we are drawing the satanic epithumia, that desire of the Great Mother to destroy the child and bring the adult. That desire of the dragon to consume the seed of the virgin. Those eidola can be expressed in the reality around you. And that's what we do. That's what we're here to do. If we're going to keep Tartarus going, then we're going to have to make the invisible visible. So it's you can see the philosophy behind.
Well, it's connected with everything where we have been talking. But let's say if somebody will see just 20 seconds now of an answer, who is Lucifer?
Lucifer is the one who refuses to lie. Lucifer is the standard of justice. Lucifer is the one who exposes you to the rays of the sun. Think about that for a minute. You're not a human of the 21st century with computers and cars. You're a fucking living organism looking at your world, seeing the sun, and that sun illuminates. It gives you an understanding even of yourself as you look at yourself in the rays of the sun and you construct that magic mirror, that Bacchic mirror in front of you to see, who am I? Everything in your life is that question. Who am I? The mystery is the healing that you have to have. It's how the cycle works. It's why you're here. It's why I'm here. It's why little babies get blown up. It's why old people set themselves on fire. It's why we kill each other in the streets. Suicide by cop. It's why that's there. So remember, the invisible world shows you the connections. If you could see it, you would understand how Eros works. You can't see it, Bruno. I can't see it. I haven't been through it. I haven't seen the great risen dead. I haven't seen her. Right? This process, the one message I would like to really get across is this process is a natural, religious process, a process of knowledge, education, and liberation. That's how they expressed it. Liberation. It will free you from your own unreality. It'll give you the reality. Now, I can send that to you, Bruno. I can send that in a magical form, or I can send that to the whole world. Do you see why Magi got executed? When Jesus and his apostles are operating, they're being accused of being Magi all over the Apocrypha. Why? Because they are bringing the images of reality. They are controlling everyone from a distance, right? Whether that distance is in time or not, Jesus has his hand up your backside, my backside. That's how the magic works. It's ionic. It is not chronic. It's ionic, right? You would know that if you had been initiated and had seen, or you would know that if you read what those who had been initiated and seen, what they had experienced. So you and I can benefit. We can still see that invisible world. We can still learn how to manipulate that invisible world. Right? But we're doing it in a secondary, kind of like we're feeding off the radiation rather than getting the original energy source. We're just feeding off the, little bits of radiation. So, but it's still magic, and it still can manipulate the world around you. Let me put it this way. One of the things that the Bacchic Maenads produced, not only this language, they produced this language for being Bacchic, and we can't even translate that. But one of the things that they produced was this awareness, this awareness of this power, this ability to control from a distance that was so scary that their political manipulation became obvious as a means of spreading insanity. What am I trying to say? The magical power that I want to tell you about that's in these texts, that's consistent, that's usable, is the induction of mania. Bacchic Maenads can make you crazy. Dionysus, in leading you to Aphrodite, can make you crazy. They can turn up the heat. They can cause you, and why do they need to do this? Because that's how ecstasy works. You can enter ecstasy and kill your whole family. Do you understand? This is not good and evil. This is the natural processes of the universe. You can enter into ecstasy and slaughter your family.
Like Heracles.
Exactly. And who is the Magus? Heracles is the Magus. Right? Mm-hmm. So that's a necessity. That insanity, that murderous insanity, is a necessary byproduct of the cult of Bacchus. And as a Magus, you can induce this insanity. You can create it. You can bring somebody to a place without talking to them visibly. You can bring them to a place of insanity. Why? Because think about it. If I've been there, or I've been with somebody who's been there, and I know how to pull these strings, I know how to cause, oh, look, if you pull here, that person is affected over there. I know eventually how to affect the people around me, and I become dangerous. And the Romans want me the fuck out of Rome when I get to this level of development. And that's how it's described. It's a fostering, a development of your awareness. Once you become aware of pulling these strings, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to walk into that interview and she's going to sit there across from you, start asking you questions and turn into an orgasmic, screaming mess of joy. Right? Because you know all the strings. That's the power of the Magus, and that's the power that the religion. And again, look, it's about sex. Yes, Bacchus leads to Aphrodite. And if Aphrodite is God, think about it. If Aphrodite is God, you want to have sex. It's not something you do as a guilty pleasure. It's something that you do to make yourself healthy. Imagine if having sex could make you healthy. People should be having healthy things that they're doing with each other. Add some dance and some music, and we've got fucking ancient choruses, democratic choruses with female leaders of oracles who were guiding the world to democracy. And how is this all happening? Through an act of sex guided by plants and animal toxins. It's completely natural, organic, 100% beauty.
100% organic and beautiful. And so, Ammon, so when we say Lucifer, like in the common conversation, of course you will relate it with the same idea of Satan, I guess. So
Eosphoros, if you want Lucifer at its source, Eosphoros. I was just talking about Lucifer. When I mentioned Aphrodite, I was talking about Lucifer. Remember Venus, the morning star? That's Lucifer. So you think devil, Lucifer, Satan, and you think one way because of how we are programmed. They are thinking, putting all sorts of different images together. And when they think Lucifer, they think the bringer of dawn, which is a specific invisible entity within the Aoratos.
oh, that's perfect, Ammon, because that's the question as is written. It's like, so we can relate all of this conversation about the Aoratos with this energy or entity, which now we call Lucifer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Right. And did you know the Romans had a version they called Lucifera? And that was Artemis. She was their dawn bringer, right? Because they understood the Aphroditic nature of the dawn bringer. They understood that Venus was Venus, right? They didn't think male devil, they didn't, right? They understood the invisible element. She is the epithumia. She is the desire. And that's the energy, the energeia of Satan is that desire. So same person.
So you said same person or same energy, all connected. I mean, we understand a bit this Lucifera and Satan seems to be an energy. It is also an entity. I guess I'm just going to give you the question, like probably the same answer. Who is Satan?
Satan is the reality. Satan is what you feel when you see that person from a distance and you desire that person. Jesus identified that. He identified that power or entity. He identified that. It's better for you not to encounter that. If the light in your eye is single, oh God, right? All of this is using the language of the mystery, of the architecture of these invisible entities. Who is Satan? Satan is the reality that you refuse to embrace. Your worship of a rapist is a reflection of you. What you're seeing around you is a reflection of you. The magic is generating your own image. That is, the rite is being activated. So that, when you go to the initiation, you see the great resurrected queen of the underworld, whose name we don't even say. We just call her the Cora, the Virgin. That same power that brings her can be activated outside of a priesthood. Wait a minute. You mean I can construct a cup outside of a priesthood? I can bring you Lady Babylon, who has mystery on her forehead, her metope. Her forehead itself contains the mystery. I don't need a priesthood. And that's the danger. Bacchus always wins because Bacchus is spontaneous, right from nature. You can have all the doctrine you want in the world. Ultimately, she will win out. Lady Babylon will conquer. Otherwise, Jesus wouldn't want to be the morning star. Have you considered, Bruno, consider this. Jesus in Revelation, the Bible, is taking on the morning star. He says, I'm the morning star. I'm the bright morning star. We just discovered who that was with Lucifer. We just saw her, Venus. We saw her, the devil. And this is what Jesus wants to be. He wants to be her. Think about his rite with the boys. What kind of satanic energy or epithumia do you have to make the mystery work with male children? That's what Jesus has. That's why he is the morning star. That's the Venus that brings that kid to sexual maturity. That's the Christ. You say the Christ? You mean the devil is the she? Yes, and the Christ is the power that the devil uses. For people to see this, it's all over the text, and for people to see it as an act of magic, you have to make clear what is being obscured.
Well,
right?
Ammon, actually, I was reading the other day this part of the Apocalypse, because I was seeing this. Yeah, you were talking about the bra. So I just took my Bible that I inherit from my grandfather, and I started to read the Apocalypse, and it says like he has like a belt on his chest. That's the way you will read it in Spanish. So does this has anything to do with what you were saying?
Yeah, he says in the Greek, it says he's got it on his mastoi, on his breasts, because Jesus has boobies. And why did he need boobies? Why is he wearing a bra in the apocalypse? Right? Why is Jesus wearing a bra in the apocalypse? It's because that isn't any just ordinary bra. That's the bra of the morning star. That thing is a device that collects exudate from the breasts of the god or the priestess who wears it in service to the god. They could take that thing off and whip you with it. It would capture that seed, that essence, that nourishment. What is it in the milk of the woman? It's nourishment. It's for building. They're applying the same thing to the invisible world, to that initiatory space. They're implying that they're applying the same thing. The fact that milk can build. When Zeus himself leaves his mother's incubator, her cave, and comes into the world, he must take of the milk of the virgin. It's the only way that we're going to get Erichthonius to be divine. Every virgin knows that. All right, I said that, and you could hear a little bit of people will get that in their head. Every virgin knows that. How do you quench the fire of the virgin, says the priestess. Wait a minute, what? I think I'm getting into things that I don't want to get into. Right? There is a scaffolding of the physics of magic going on. That when I hear certain things, or you hear certain things from that, we can pick up right away on what the daimon is. If we can recognize those daimones, we can manipulate them. So that's how we create around us. You use that same satanic energy that Jesus was feeding on. You use that and project that into the world. When Jesus takes the hand of that 12-year-old girl and raises her out of a coma back to be born again, that healing act of the Christed Jesus Savior, the one who is healing, right? That is the cry. That's why Eve is called to shout. Right? They're using the same machinery, and you and I don't see it. We can't see it. But it's active out there, and it's available. People can access this according to, that's why you've got people like Iamblichus trying to write a Pythagorean manual for the specific entities, right, who populate the invisible cosmos. I can tell you of a dozen entities that float around your bed at night.
Please do. Please do. Just give us 4.
Just kidding. Okay, fantastic. There is a feminine entity that wants to consume seed, and there is a masculine entity that wants to transfer seed. And you think, wait a minute, those aren't necessarily the same thing. No, those are not opposites. That's how the universe is working. And what's his name? The Byzantine scholar I was just talking about, he got it. Nick, I think he got it. And those witches who were using these very practices of harvesting daimones, because that's what you have to do. When you use the cream and you put it on your armpits, you put it on your vagina, you use the wand, the medicated wand, to enter into that epithumia, to do that satanic performance, right? And people say, oh, satanic performance. And they think, oh, it's a bunch of creeps in their basement with this and that. Bullshit. Right? That satanic performance is you being able to enter into that invisible space. If you're not doing that, you're not doing a satanic performance. and what you're doing is of no effect. So I think it's important to make, an allowance for realism here. And if they weren't doing it in antiquity, and it had nothing, you're talking about things that have nothing to do with the rite, that are a weird hybrid of monism and some kind of reaction to it called Satanism. None of that stuff is historical. It's all bullshit. But if you want to see what they were actually doing, you have to understand those invisible connections. And those spirits that are around your bed, I talked about two that are different, manipulators of seed. There is also a daimon who can enter you. Now, listen, this is the physics. And this is all over the place. This is not one description. There is a daimon that has power and access to you, like many daimones, at the time of twilight. The time of twilight is the time of Eosphoros, which is the Greek earlier name for that the Romans turned into Lucifer. That Eosphoros, if you want to call that individual Satan, that's fine. But that individual has that power only during the pre-light, only during this period when the rays of the sun are not direct. So it's like they thought that there was a window. This is the time that the dawn bringer operates. When the earliest Christians met was at twilight, because the quality of the light is different. Twilight avoids the direct sunlight and thereby opens up a necromantic window. You can release the souls of the dead in the twilight. And that's why the earliest Christians, when they meet to sing hymns to the dead, they are singing them at dawn. They meet before the sun is up. It's in the Bible, right? It's why people have church in the morning on Sunday, right, or Saturday. It's why they have that early morning service.
So they were, so there are entities that they were engaging with.
Yeah, and if it bothers you that they're entities, think about it as just the natural physics. That when you're sleeping tomorrow morning, Bruno, there's a short segment of time when the Dawnbringer can access you. And this is specifically a time of vision. It's a time when you can even wake up, so to speak, open your eyes and not be able to move. It is a phenomenon of that power sitting upon your chest, right? If it's the Mormolucaean, you're dead. If it is the Lucifer, you're in a place of having your eyes opened, right? Remember Eve and Adam, right? They were taken to the very same place. It's where all of us must go. And remember, the drugs are the assistants. So if you enter into that stage under the influence of a specific plant, right, or a shelled organism, right, or a venom, then what you're doing is you're creeping in through that daimon, because that snake has a daimon too, right? I can go to this, you love this, I can go to the Aoratos, I can go to the invisible. If I am charged with the snake daimon, the entities there will see it and they'll treat me differently. If I don't go with the snake, they'll treat me in a different way. So think about this. You can program the way that people will treat your initiates. The way that the invisible entities will treat your initiates is determined by how you train the initiate. Whatever chemicals you are using, because those plants, remember, they have the daimon in them. Do you want the daimon of the mandrake? Because the witches use the daimon of the mandrake to access the epithumia of the devil, and that's dangerous. It works, but it's dangerous, right? So that kind of, you can use those spirits. Ultimately, a witch then can cast herself right through that satanic pre-dawn window, right into your head. It's the weirdest thing in the world. Even to the point that they're writing about what we would call, what do we call that? Spontaneous emission. Right? So there is a developmental phase.
That's how we call it, yeah.
Right? Where developing males will have spontaneous, they call it spontaneous nocturnal emission. Right? You can explain the physics of that because it's all unseen. So you can figure out the physics of why that is, that a kid will go through a spontaneous emission and wake up having entered a world of, oh my God, what the hell was that? Right?
Yeah.
Because there's a daimon behind it. And you can be a creep. And you can ride that daimon like it's an Uber. This is what Jesus was trying to cast out. Do you understand? There is healing that has to take place. And the only way to do it is to cast out that force, that entity, that power, to get rid of it. If your eye offends you and you're at the grocery store tomorrow looking at the ladies, Bruno, and you're like, oh, zoom, 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 right? I love it. It's better for you to get rid of that epithumia by taking out your own eyeball. That's what Jesus is telling to kids. So, blessed are the eunuchs. Why is he doing it? Because you need the energy from that kid. You need the satanic energy. There's something Donald Trump needs from prepubescent girls that he is getting, that is feeding him. Right? Oh, God. What kind of power is it?
So this idea that you have a problem since you are born, it's not a satanic idea.
Yeah, no, right? What is Bacchus meant to do? He's meant to purge you. If you're a pervert and I'm working for the devil, my job is to bring out your perversion and punish it. That's what Bacchus does. He brings out Pentheus's perversion and punishes it. It happens to be his death. And you have to understand, see, if you've seen the other side and you've seen the risen queen, you know what justice is. You know the punishment of these people, the punishment of the pedos, the pervs, and the genocidal people. Their punishment is your responsibility. That magic is meant to punish them. So you look at it in the way that some people are drawn. I'll give you this. Some people are drawn to that satanic energy. Some people are drawn to it. They don't even realize it. And as soon as they come for it, you can smell the thirst. It's like they have a thirst to drink that blood. They're like vampires, and they want to drink that blood. And you can sense that in them and feed them in a way that they don't even realize that you're feeding them. Why? Because you're bringing out their punishment. We are here for punishment. That's what the magic is. It's why this is that kingdom of darkness. It's Black Knight who rules here. And you think that's bad because you think in terms of bad and good, not in terms of having been to the other side, having seen the Queen of Night, and having come back with the new mission of punishing everyone for their pollution. Right? That instinct that you've got, Bruno, to punish the pedophiles, right? You find out that the leader of Israel, former leader of Israel, president of the United States, prince of England, you find out that these people are harming children. You have a natural instinct to stop that, right? The magic is enabling you to stop that, right? That's why it's used. That's why it's sacred. That's why the witches are protecting that sacred relationship. They're killing off that child to create the adult. So I think it's beautiful. And the thing is, people come to me a lot and they say, "What did you do here?" And you caused me to have this problem, right? The first thing I think in my head is, maybe you fucking deserved it. The lady who was in prison, maybe she deserved to be there to pay whatever crime that she was paying for, right? Just because you're suffering the effects doesn't mean you shouldn't, right?
Right. Ammon, I'm gonna harvest you till the end. 5 minutes.
Harvest me. One last question, and then I must be off to fly on my wings of the devil.
Like, so I'm gonna give you a quick one.
Yeah, a quick one. Let's see if I can answer it.
So, can you give us an idea of what the biblical apocalypse means?
Yeah, it's the complete revelation. It's your ability to see the invisible, right? What is going to happen? The veil will be removed. Your children will dream dreams and see visions. We will have the return of the Antichrist's supremacy, the dragon release. All of this coming to you from the music and these images in your head, all pointing to one thing, to the revelation. It is an apocalypse, a revealing. It has taken the hidden, that's what it means, you know that, apokalypto. To kalypto in Greek is to hide something, to cover it up. Apokalypto is to unhide it, to take it out of its covering and to show it to the world. The mystery initiation is an apocalypse. The oracular vision rites are an apocalypse. So, what is the apocalypse? It is the functioning mystery so that everybody sees the invisible. Think about it. If you dump all that knowledge onto the mass population so that they suddenly wake up, they download all the information of what it is to be dead and are suddenly revived, that level of consciousness is complete and total destruction. The apocalypse leads to the vision of destruction. That degrading, mastering power for the cosmos just to be collapsed in one revelation, in one exposure, in one coming to knowledge. You know, when people came through the mysteries, it was so emotional. Sometimes they would have breakdowns and have to go talk to physicians about the breakdown that they're having. Why? Because the vision, when that vision comes through, that awareness comes through, it's almost like our vessels are incapable of really retaining it. So, as a final answer to your final question, the apocalypse is the coming to know the real. It is the expression of the real. Things that you don't understand will become understood, and you will be afraid. I love it. I love it. Don't you love that creepiness?
Yeah, the creepiness is the best of it. Love it.